Good morning. Today is Thursday, August 3rd, 2023. Several weeks ago, I read an essay written by Mark Oppenheimer, and especially as the rabbi of a synagogue, it moved me very deeply. The title of the essay, which appeared in the New York Times, was "The Pittsburgh Gunman Didn't Just Kill 11 Jews, He Killed a Minion." And Oppenheimer wrote as follows: "During the trial of Robert Bowers, who was convicted of the 2018 murders of 11 Jews in Pittsburgh at the Tree of Life Synagogue, I kept thinking about the testimony of Stephen Weiss. Mr. Weiss, a retired public school science teacher and longtime ritual director for Tree of Life, was one of the 11 people who survived the attack. During the trial, he told the court that in the years since the event, we don't have the same attendance. He explained that the synagogue lost members who could be counted on to make a minyan, the essential quorum of 10 Jews required for certain prayers. They were killed." And he writes, "The murder of any human being is infinitely terrible, but the murder of a Jew in a synagogue has a special quality. It makes the tiny minority of Jews who show up for one another at minyan, at services, who make the minyan, even smaller. That loss," he wrote, "has unique ramifications which may not be apparent to the non-observant. We cannot say Kaddish without a minyan. We cannot read from the Torah. We can't do Judaism without 10 Jews." Now, the shooter, who was found guilty of obstructing the free exercise of religious beliefs resulting in death, well, what does it mean to obstruct religious practice? For Jews, it means something quite specific, because there are numerous religious practices that we cannot do without a minyan. The loss of those stalwart, often unsung members of the community radically alters our literal ability to observe our religion. And because the murders were committed early on Shabbos morning, soon after the synagogue building opened, the people caught in the gunfire were reliable attendees, the ones who showed up early, who kept the community running. He literally killed a minyan. Yesterday, a jury condemned the shooter to capital punishment, to death. Excuse me. This massacre, which occurred on October 27, 2018, was the deadliest anti-Semitic attack in U.S. history. And if ever anyone deserved capital punishment, it is this man. And yet, there are deeply mixed feelings. Most families of the victims have said that they supported a death sentence, but some of the families have been outspoken in their opposition to it. One woman, Miri Rabinowitz, whose husband was killed, said executing the gunman would be a bitter irony because her husband had been devoted to what she referred to as the sanctity of life. Audrey Glickman, a woman who survived the shooting in part by hiding underneath the tallis, she said something different. She said, "The purpose of the death penalty is not so much punishing as cutting off a person from society." That's an interesting choice of words, and I'm sure it's intentional. It echoes the biblical phrase, "Ubi'arta haram yikirbecha," and you should destroy the evil from your midst. It's not so much punishing as cutting off a person from society, eliminating the evil, taking away the risk, the potential for infection, and the possibility of further harm to citizens. Even if he sits alive on death row for decades, he is separated from others. Rabbi John Perlman, one of the rabbis who was leading services that morning, and lost 3 members of his congregation, he wrote that executing the shooter would bring, he did not believe that executing the shooter would bring either justice or peace. Revenge will not bring our slaved loved ones back to life, and seeking it may even hurt ourselves and extend our sadness. Some Jewish organizations are praising the event. The head of security of one major Jewish organization, Michael Masters, said, "This sentence sends a message to violent extremists, terrorists, and anti-Semites everywhere that the United States will not tolerate hate and violence against the Jewish people, nor any people of faith." And the response of the North American Jewish community to this attack has been a massive effort to increase training and to improve security in synagogues, Jewish schools, Jewish buildings, including at ADATH, all across North America. The opinions of those immediately affected by this tragedy, of course, must be heard. And at the same time, of course, the decision is in the hands of the United States judicial system. But to consider just for a moment what Jewish law would say about this. Well, the answer is it's complicated. The Torah mandates capital punishment for murder with a rigorous set of requirements to be met. There must be eyewitnesses. There must be clear knowledge that the murderer knows that their action is a capital crime. It is debatable, but it is possible that this case meets those extremely high standards. However, according to Jewish law, capital punishment can only be imposed by a Sanhedrin, which is a special court of 23 Jewish judges with unique authorization and procedures, and that Sanhedrin, that type of Jewish court, has not existed in almost 2,000 years. Even in Israel today, there is no court that meets this threshold. And so the question relates to another area of Jewish law, which is Sheva Mitzvos B'nai Noach, the 7 Noahide laws. In addition to the laws, the mitzvos for Jews, the Torah also has a set of laws that apply to all of humanity, to every human being. 7 Noahide laws. And one of them is called dinim, which means justice. And that is a requirement from the Torah point of view for every society in the world to have a judicial system. Now, each society gets to decide what kind of judicial system to have, what the values should be, what the punishment should be for various crimes, but there is an obligation on society to have a system of law and order so that there's not simply chaos and lawlessness. So the question is, does that mitzvah of dinim go so far as to allow a secular court, a secular government, from the point of Jewish law, does it allow them to even impose capital punishment? Some authorities say yes, if that's what a given society decides. Others disagree and hold that without specific permission in the Torah for a secular court to impose capital punishment, no such court may take the life of a murderer, and a different punishment must be chosen. The issue is unresolved and purely hypothetical because, of course, no one is asking the opinion of Jewish law on this question. As I said, it is in the hands of the U.S. judicial system, where it should be and which we respect. But it's an interesting subject to try to grapple with from a Jewish law point of view. Our hearts go out to the survivors and the families of the victims. Their trauma continues. Just one of the many lessons we must take from this is that hate is rampant in the world, in our society. The Tree of Life Rabbi Jeffrey Myers, who was there that day, he wrote, "When people don't speak up, their silence is deafening. Speech is just the beginning. It moves from speech to action." And finally this, one last quote from the survivor Audrey Glickman. "We have this big tapestry. Somebody shot holes in our tapestry. We can weave it back together. We'll never be the same. But we have all these people who said, let's help them weave that back together again." Yes, let's do just that. My friends, I wish you a good day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.